What is the cheapest way to fix your marriage? That's what we're going to talk about today. I have a chance to sit down with some incredible marriage counselors and just an incredible team that helps out marriages and has been doing it for a very long time. Dave and Ashley Willis. You're going to love what they have to say. You're going to find it to be incredibly practical, and you're going to be able to put some things into play today. So welcome to Simple Faith, our emphasis on marriage, part 5. The quickest, cheapest, easiest way to start turning the tide in your marriage. Here we go. David, Ashley, it is great to have you on the show. I want to jump right into getting our audience to know who you are. And we were reminiscing a little bit before we hit record, but tell us your journey, how you got into marriage ministry, and a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah. You want to start, sweetie?
Yeah. So I met the love of my life here on her first day of college, like quarter century ago, a little school called Georgetown College in central Kentucky, where we would drive pretty long way to get to Southland Christian Church and hear Rusty George preach at the 608 service for young adults back in the day. And man, and we love those memories. So we met in college, started dating, and just right away, I knew, like, okay, first off, this girl's way out of my league, but second, I gotta seal the deal quickly before she realizes she has so many other options. And so we got married quickly. I mean, she was still in school.
Well, he graduated one Saturday, and then we got married the next Saturday, and then we were off to the races. I was still in school, and Dave actually worked for the college. And then quickly, I always knew when I met Dave, because he was known around campus to be a great preacher, and he would speak at his fraternity devotionals, Lambda Chi Alpha. And then he would speak sometimes at chapel. And so I knew that was part of our story. I didn't know what that would look like, but I knew you would, probably be a pastor. Yeah. And so eventually you became a pastor.
Well, I was no Rusty George, but I enjoyed giving a sermon, and we enjoyed just doing ministry together. We found out early. We started volunteering with a youth ministry in town, and the kids in the youth ministry, much to our surprise, what they wanted to talk to us about mostly was relationship advice. They said, you guys just seem like, you really enjoy being around each other, and it's not that way with my parents, and I don't really see a lot of couples who seem to like being around each other. So how does this work? And we were honored by that. We felt totally unqualified because we were figuring it out ourselves. But I think that was kind of the early seeds of marriage ministry, is realizing, like, people are just looking for, like, how do you have fun in a marriage? Like, how do you connect and be best friends with your spouse? And things we'd wanted and things that we'd worked for and are still working for. And over time, God kept kind of making it clear that was a big thing he had for us to do, was just to encourage couples, encourage marriages. And we've been on the journey specifically of marriage ministry, I'd say, for the last decade. We've been in church ministry much longer than that, but the last decade, really, it's been our full-time focus, and it's been a joy. We've done it independently. We've done it as part of bigger organizations, but the heart with all of it is really just to help couples grow closer to Jesus and closer to each other. And we feel like if marriages are strong, families are strong, churches are strong. If churches are strong, societies are strong. And that's by God's design. He is the one who created marriage. And it's a privilege for us to just get to encourage folks.
Mm-hmm. I'm always interested in people that help marriages. What has helped you? Who are kind of the voices in your head, the books that you've read, the mentors you've had that have really been a blessing to you, that have kind of made you who you are, and the well that you dip from in order to help other people?
Man, so many. And what's so cool about it is the marriage space is really small. So we've gotten to meet a lot of those heroes of ours who helped us. So, all the way back to Les and Leslie Parrott with Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, which is now known as SYMBIS, the SYMBIS assessment, all that stuff. And
we did that when we were engaged.
Yeah, we were engaged.
And now we're friends with
them, which is so cool.
wild.
But that really helped us. It really, God is talking about all the different aspects of marriage, where we thought, which is really ironic, we really thought we're both communication. Like we have degrees in communication. Dave has a master's in communication. I now have a master's in biblical counseling. But back then, I think you were in your master's program, and we thought to ourselves, like, well, communication, we can like snooze on that because we have that down.
Problem. We got it.
And through doing
turns out it was a wasted degree. I had no idea what I was doing.
But through doing that program, we realized, like, wow, we really do need to work on this thing. Like, we don't have it all figured out. And really, I believe you never have it completely figured out, because every season of marriage brings new challenges. But we realized real fast that we had pride around communication, and God was like, oh no, you need to work on this. And so they taught us a lot. I would say to Marriage Today / Exo Marriage, Jimmy and Karen Evans really influenced us with their program. And which is so funny, because years later, we ended up working with that organization for almost 8 years. And gosh, sweetie, who else do you think? I mean, there's so many. I mean, I would say even like Mike Bro, when he was preaching at Southland, we were receiving those messages. And when he would preach on relationships, we leaned in really close.
So many pastors along the way.
So many pastors.
And then just our own parents,
Yes,
I feel like
absolutely.
No couple's perfect, but they're all still married, and we've learned different things from each of them, which has
Just
been a
such
gift and something we don't take for granted. And then a lot of mentors that God just put in our path through churches we've been part of, through just doing life and relationships, and books we've read from people that we'll never meet, or maybe have already passed on. But it's been a journey, our whole marriage, of just trying to keep learning and keep growing, and realizing, like, hey, we never arrive. And so anytime we're around a couple who's older and, it just seems to be healthy, we always ask them, like, hey, what's your marriage advice? Teach us, tell us your story. We love hearing people's stories, and then giving them a chance to share it, which is a gift for people, but it's a gift for us to hear it and learn from it.
Oh, that's so good. So helpful, and some great resources for people to check out that's out there.
Yes.
Symbols is fantastic. I've used that for a lot of couples. And I recently handed that book and assessment out to my daughter.
Oh my goodness.
Because she's engaged, and I thought, I don't even want to read the results of this. So somebody else will be doing that.
Right.
One of the things that's interesting about, we talk about all these resources, and there's all these marriage retreats you can go on. There's all these, obviously counseling is extremely helpful for people. But what's interesting is the cheapest and quickest way to help your marriage thrive is in something that you just mentioned, which is the way we communicate with each other. And I know you guys share a lot about the power of words. And it's interesting to hear you talk about how you had this degree in communication, and yet you still struggle to do it well. I think every marriage would say that they struggle with that. I mean, my wife and I have been married over 30 years, and there are times I think, boy, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I could have said that differently. Tell us a little bit about the power of words and why that is such a big thing that we often overlook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. I think we grow up hearing these things that aren't true, like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Right.
And so I think we live sort of with this false narrative that words, they don't really matter. You can say whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. But when you read the Bible, it's really the opposite message. There are some sobering passages in scripture, like when Jesus says, we'll have to give an account for every empty word we've spoken. By your words, you'll be acquitted. By your words, you'll be condemned. I mean, that's heavy. And you go all the way back to the beginning, and God created the universe. He could have created it any way he wanted, but he chose to create it through speaking it into existence. He created everything through words, and then he created us in his image, giving us the power in our words, I believe, to help create the world around us. Not in a physical sense like he did. We can't speak, house be built kind of thing, but our words do have the power to shape our realities and certainly to shape our relationships. And the more time we've spent around couples, like the more we've realized and tried to emulate in our own marriage, that I think the greatest indicator for the health of a couple is just in the way they speak to each other, and not just the words, but also the tone. I believe that your tone should be so tender to one another that even if someone didn't speak your language, even if they were, a foreigner that didn't speak English, had no idea what you were saying, just based on watching you and your spouse interact, your nonverbals, your eye contact, your body language, the tone of your voice, they should be able to tell those two people love and respect each other.
Right.
And that should be our goal. And then, of course, the words themselves, the content, not just the nonverbals, has a lot of importance too.
It does.
Let's talk about words in the context of male, female. Are there words that guys need to hear and that are different than words that females need to hear? Talk a little bit about the words themselves before we get into the tone.
Absolutely. No, it is. We're wired differently. And I think you can be married for 3 days and know that real quick and be like, oh yeah, we're not clones of each other. And just by the very fact that we're a man and a woman. And so different things are going to resonate. And I love a dear friend of ours, Shanti Feldhahn, who's also a great marriage author that, she's really, incredible. Really taught us a lot before we actually became friends with her years ago. But she does social research and from a Christian perspective. And in one of her books years ago, she did this study on the words that women really long to hear from their husbands and the words that men really want to hear from their wives. And what they found is for men in particular, they most like hearing basically, I am able or you are able, like the message from their wife, like you are able, I believe in you, I am for you, from their wife, like basically being their cheerleader, knowing that their wife really thinks he's the man, basically. Okay. Mm-hmm. And for the women, it was more from the standpoint of like, I'm really intrigued by you. You fascinate me. You're not old news. Like you are, I'm learning something new every day. And so those, are both great things that I think both men and women want, but to the degree that we desire those words, Shanti found that it was different. And so it doesn't mean that we both don't, it really kind of falls in line with the whole love and respect thing, because for you are the man really is that respect. And I am fascinated by you and just want to learn more and more about you is more from that love and admiration side, which, they've studied that forever. But I think it's just important to remember, for the wives listening, like really build your man up by thanking him, by pointing out the things that you see him doing well, by saying like, you were so good at this. And I just love that about you. And husbands listening, really just talk to your wife. Whenever you say, I love you, don't just say, I love you, like say what you love about her, be specific, and really kind of shock her, like learn new things, like tell her what you're learning about her after 23 years. We've married 23 years. And when Dave points out something to me that he values or just really admires, it just means the world to me, even more so after 23 years. Well,
and one of the things that stood out with Shanti's research specifically that Ashley's already alluded to is she said for men in particular, they desire to hear the words thank you.
Yes.
More than I love you, more than really almost anything else a wife can say, because when they hear thank you from their wife, what they hear is you did a good job.
Yep.
I see what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing and you did it well. And I think sometimes we lose out on the power of that because the wife might think, well, if I shouldn't have to thank him for that. He's just doing normal stuff, or he knows I appreciate it, but he wants to hear it just as she wants to hear how much you love and adore and are intrigued and fascinated by everything that she does.
It's so true. And I can't tell you how many times in a counseling session, you'll hear a husband say, like, we'll talk about like, how do you guys express love to each other? Do you tell her that you love her, specific things about her? And he goes, well, I go to work every day. She should know I love her. I work hard. She should know. And then you'll hear wives be like, well, he should know that I am thankful. I mean, I show him in XYZ ways, and I think the whole, like, he should know, she should know, it doesn't get you anywhere. You got to use your words. We tell our kids when they're little, when they're throwing a fit or, whatever, acting out, we're like, use your words. But in the same way as adults, we have to use our words. And I think in marriage, so many times we're kind of messing with ourselves and setting ourselves up to fail when we try to just, try to expect our spouse to be a mind reader and we don't really use our words, which I was guilty of in the early years of our marriage. I really had to learn that.
It's interesting you talk about the guys need to just be thanked. When my wife and I had this conversation the other day, I emptied the dishwasher, which is something that both of us hate doing.
Of course.
I think everyone does.
That's why we had children, so they could empty the dishwasher.
Yes.
Dishes are done, man. Cleans them down to the shop.
And now they're moved out of the house, so we're like, oh, okay. So I emptied it, and she came in and she goes, do I need to thank you every time you empty the dishwasher?
Yes.
And I said, no. And then I find myself saying, well, I think you do. I would like you to. And I find myself always pointing out, hey, by the way, I emptied the dishwasher.
New dishwasher.
Take it out.
No.
No, take it out now.
You don't like the fact that I improved the dishwasher. Remember that yolk that wouldn't come off the plate this morning? Watch this. Hear that hum? That's a Finley 2-stage 5-horse blast master compressor. Air delivery system is 18 cubic feet per square minute. That should say testosterone right on there. Because that is a man's dishwasher.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm awesome.
We never outgrow that, wanting our wife to say, you did great. Thank you. That's amazing.
Praise behavior is repeated behavior. I just want to say that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me dig into that because, in my mind, and I'm sure in my wife's mind, she thinks if I say that, it's going to come across like I'm treating you like a 4-year-old, right? It sounds placating. It sounds I'm talking down to you.
Right.
How do we get over that trigger in our mind that allows us to keep saying those things that we think, I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but they still need to hear it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we don't overcomplicate it when we're talking about perfect strangers. When somebody holds a door for us that we've never seen or never will see again, and we say, thank you, I appreciate, thank you. Of course we say that because we do appreciate it. But all of a sudden, when it comes to our spouse, we think, oh no, they know. I mean, it's like talking to them like a child if I thank them. No, we shouldn't give our gratitude and our courtesy and our kindness and to strangers and neglect to give it to our spouse because we assume, well, they already know, or I've said it enough, or I told her I loved her 10 years ago. And if it changes, I'll tell her, but I don't have to tell her every day. And there's power in the consistency of our, in fact, I think consistency is one of the most powerful forces on earth. It's how it's a stream of water can cut through a mountain with consistency. And our words, the consistency of our words has such power. And you're like putting little coins in the love bank of your spouse every time you say, thank you. Hey, great job. I appreciate you doing that. I see what you're doing. You did great. I love it. Or I love you. Just those kind words, they go so far. And when we get out of the habit of not saying it and just assuming, oh, they know. And they probably do know, but we're missing out. We're robbing ourselves and them of an opportunity for a connection, because anytime you can speak kindness and gratitude to each other, there's a connection. And just speaking as a guy, I can tell you, I never am going to outgrow wanting to hear, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. You emptied the dishwasher, which I did this morning. I don't know if you noticed. But I did.
You've never been so hot, honestly.
Yes. Honestly. We call it chore play.
Chore play.
You do some chores and all of a sudden.
It's a real thing.
Hey, let me interrupt this for just a moment. Our new book, 40 Days to Easter, is available now on Amazon. Pick up this book, start by March the 10th, and over the next 42 days, you get one short reading prepping you for Easter as we journey through the book of Mark. 40 Days to Easter by Rusty George, found now on Amazon. Okay, so for the couple out there that's thinking, I wish I would have heard this 20 years ago. I've had 20 years of sarcasm and criticism and negativity. It's going to be a lot of positive words to try to tip that scale the other way. What would you say to them about, just stay with it? It will eventually pay off, but you've got some work to do.
Yes, I totally get that sentiment. And we can always feel like overwhelmed by all the changes we need to make. And it just feels like, man, how many years is it going to take? But I'll tell you this. Some of your listeners might be familiar with the Gottman Institute that did this thing called the Love Lab, Dr. Gottman and his wife years ago, where they followed couples, I think for several decades, to see like what really makes marriage not only just makes the marriage stay together, but really thrive together. And they found this thing called the 5-to-1 ratio. And what it says is, over time, if you can make sure that you have 5 for every 1 negative correspondence that you have or criticism that you have to share with your spouse, which is going to happen in marriage. There's going to be stuff you have to address that's like the hard stuff or concerns you have. Make sure that you have 5 positive interactions to every one negative interaction. And so what that does is the more you can show gratitude to your spouse, the more you can compliment them, the more you can build them up and just be kind, having these kind interactions. When you do have those times where there is an issue and you need to address it, you are more likely to address it in a nice way because you've set the tone of having gratitude and appreciation between the two of you, but also your spouse is going to receive that concern so much better because they know you believe in them because you've already spent that time to really fill their tank. I think Godman calls it like the love tank. You fill their love tank with all of these good things that you've shared with them, these positive interactions you've shared with them. And so when you do have to address the heart, it's like, oh, this is because they actually care. This is not because they're just trying to be critical of me. And so how long does that take? I think it depends on your situation. But just like Dave said about consistency, what we do consistently really shapes every part of our life. And so I would just encourage somebody who feels like, man, I'm the 5-to-1 ratio reversed in my marriage. Like we've had 5 negative interactions for every 1 positive. I would say we'll just work hard to start each day. Like one of the easiest ways couples can do this is start each day thinking of 3 things that you just love and appreciate about your spouse. And then I would encourage you, write them down. There's power in writing something down and seeing it with your eyes. It just really keeps it on your mind and on your heart. But then take it a step further and thank God for it. Say a prayer for them. Thank God for those 3 things. And then the final step is go to your spouse and thank them for those 3 things.
Yeah.
Just say like throughout the day, just kind of, different times a day, just thank them. You can do this via text. You can do this in person. Like there's so many ways we can connect these days. And I think just start there, start with gratitude.
And the next time you have a negative thought about your spouse, don't say it out loud.
Right.
You don't just because something comes into your head. It's that simple. You don't have to just blurt out every mean thing you think. You can just hold back on that.
And don't feed it.
Don't feed it. Yeah.
Don't feed the negative thoughts. Yeah. In fact, starve them. And I'm not saying you can't have a negative thought about your spouse maybe there is a real issue, but don't just feed it all day long and stew on it and let it become the thing you think about your spouse, because what's going to happen when they get home and when you guys get home together, you're going to just completely either not talk to them because you're so mad, or you're just going to spew what we like to call word vomit that doesn't help anybody.
Well, and that's biblical too. Like Jesus said, seek and you will find. And the actual verb tense he used there is basically whatever you keep seeking is what you're going to find. And so look for the good. Philippians 4:8 says, whatever is good and pleasing and beautiful and excellent and worthy of praise. Think about those things, and Paul wrote that from a prison cell, right? There were a lot of negative things he could have been focused on, but instead focus your thoughts on the good as it relates to your spouse and your marriage, and then speak those things. And the things that you speak and you praise, they're probably going to start doing more. And it's also going to change your own perspective and make you have a more positive outlook on your marriage.
Yes, we had some dear friends in the marriage space. The Rouses, Caleb and Stephanie Rouse, shared something on our podcast recently, and I loved this. But Stephanie said, our hidden thoughts have seen consequences. And I thought, man, isn't that a great statement?
Wow, that is so good.
It's such a good statement. And I thought that just doesn't relate just to marriage, but even about your kids, about yourself, about God, about, everything. But I thought, man, as it relates to marriage, really praying like, Lord, keep my mind on the good about my spouse. Keep my mind on the things that you want me to focus on so that I can treat my spouse in the way that not only I want to be treated, but the way you treat us, God. And he loves us. He forgives us, and just having that tender heart towards our spouse, because so many times when we don't communicate well, we have hardened hearts. And so, really asking God, help my heart stay tender towards my spouse. And if there is an issue, help me address it tenderly too.
Our hidden thoughts have seen consequences.
Yes.
Is that right?
Isn't that good?
That is
that's good. That's
so
gold.
Good. Okay, let me ask you this. There are obviously times you have to say something that is negative. You have to bring up, hey, this was out of bounds, and this was not good, or I didn't appreciate this, or you really dropped the ball here, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that in a way that still adds value, shows respect, shows love? Is it the old adage of the criticism sandwich, the Oreo cookie, positive, negative, positive, which I always found funny because the best part of the Oreo is the middle. So it should be, negative, positive, negative. But what's your advice on that, and using words when you have to say something that's something difficult?
Yeah. Well, I do think the sandwich thing works. Les and Leslie Parrott, they have a language they put to this called sharing my withholds. Things that I'm like have been withholding that I need to share. And they say whenever they have a negative withhold to share, then the rule is they can't share that without sharing. I think it's three positive. Well, no,
it's the communication sandwich. Right. You start with a positive. Yeah.
Right. Positive. Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's just different language for the same thing. But to be really intentional about sharing something positive that you appreciate, that you see that hasn't been spoken yet. And it forces you to keep that mindset of like, again, calling out the good, showing gratitude, being positive. It lets your spouse receive it with, with more grace, because they know like, all right, I'm going to hear this like maybe bit of constructive criticism or correction or whatever, something that might have a negative tinge to it, but there's going to be two positive things. And even if it's got to be more direct than that, even if it's just a moment where you got to be a little more blunt, having been an encourager, having, like Ashley said earlier, spoken kindness as your baseline is going to help your spouse receive that from a place of, all right, I know this was probably difficult for my spouse to say because they're always seeing the good in me. And this is coming from a place of love. They're going to see it, a little bit clearer. And
I think too, it's important if you can to, how you say what it is that's on your mind and heart, to use I statements and how that is affecting you, because then you're just talking about how it feels and you're not using the you statements of like, you always do this, you never do this. And you, it can feel very attacking to your spouse. And so if you come at them with like, hey, I've been really concerned lately about you because when you come home, I feel like you're angry with me. And I don't know if you are, and it might be something else, but the way that you talk to me, it hurts my heart. And I feel like it's not, like you're not a safe place for me in that moment. And so that then I shut down, and I'm sorry I've been shutting down, but it's because I don't know what to say. And let me know what I can do to help you, bring me into what's going on, because I think a lot of times in marriage, the communication shuts down because we tell ourselves, well, I don't want to burden my spouse with that thing. Or, I'm dealing with all this. I don't want to put that on her. I don't want to put that on him. But really, it ends up building up walls because then our spouse, we don't know what's really going on with each other. And so it's important to just have that kind of conversation where you come at it with the I statements. So you can show that you come at them with a posture of curiosity as opposed to a posture of criticism. Because anytime we just come at them with something critical and there's just not care with it. But when you come at them with curiosity and empathy, they're more likely to lean in and not avoid having that vulnerable conversation.
That's so good. You've mentioned a few times the nonverbals. Now, we all know you should not be watching TV while you're having this conversation. You should put your phone down, those kind of things. But I also know that women tend to communicate better face to face and men better side by side. That's why I get really chatty when we're in the car. Because we're side by side, and my wife gets really chatty over dinner. So what would you say is the compromise there? What's the best way to have great conversation, but yet respecting each other's preferred communication style?
Yeah, I love that question.
I would say just sit at a 45-degree angle where you're in the middle, half side by side, 45. Half face to face. I think you got to put each other in settings to win. I think you got to have those talks in the car or on a walk, which help me open up side by side. And at the same time, guys, you gotta intentionally have a lot of face-to-face time with your wife because she's going to feel most connected to you in those moments. And so it's not an either or. I mean, God wired us up this way, and it's not that one way's right and one way's wrong. Right. It's that, like all parts of marriage, it's an opportunity to serve each other. It's an opportunity to, to have both spouses' needs met and to learn new things and to step outside your own comfort zones a little bit for the sake of the other. And marriage is going to give you a million opportunities to do that.
That's right. So like maybe on a date night, you start with a walk and you end with a dinner. And so you're hitting both of those communication styles.
That's really good. That's really good. Okay. As we wrap up, give our couples out there one thing to take away from this or to do later today. So they might be thinking, oh my goodness, I got the 5-to-1 thing. I've got the positive thoughts. I've got the walk, give us like one, do this afternoon or this evening or whatever it is, and this will begin the cycle for you.
You want to start?
Man, I come back to, I think the simplest step is I would challenge, I know I talked about 3 things to be grateful for, but I would just challenge a couple, take 1 week and just think of one thing in the morning that you're grateful for when it comes to your spouse. Do what I said, write it down, have a little journal, write it down so you remember it. And because I know life gets crazy. Thank God for it. And then thank your spouse at some point through the day. And I want to challenge you to do that one time each day. And email us info@daveandashley.com. If it doesn't actually change the temperature of your home, even in 1 week, it will, right, sweetie?
Oh, yeah,
it
really
is a game changer. And what you'll find too, is if you're in this season of negativity, it might be real shocking to your spouse. Like if you haven't thanked them in a long time, they're going to notice, but it's going to feel good.
What's going on?
Like, what's going on?
Dying? What's happening? What's happening?
Right. But they'll take note and be like, wow, and just do it with a smile, be genuine about it. And maybe you need to make a list beforehand. So like if you're in a really hard season, sometimes it's hard to even think like about, oh my gosh, I don't even know, that's hard. But if you can start with just one thing and then pray about it, like God, give me, like bring things to mind, help me to do this one thing a day, and give it a week, just see what happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's huge. And I would say that's start with that. If you're just going to do one thing, start with that. And mine would be to like try to remove identify and remove one negative habit that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it could be a nonverbal. It could be like that you roll your eyes sometimes at your spouse, which the Gottman Institute found is one of the highest predictors of divorce, by the way, is eye rolling. But to identify one of the negative things you're doing or saying and just say, I'm going to not do that all week. I'm not even going to tell my spouse I'm not doing it, but I'm going to intentionally not do that this week. And instead I'm going to replace it with a positive.
I'll just give an example. Early in our marriage, I used to do this thing where I expected Dave to read my mind because I was convinced that the more he loved me, the more he would just know what I wanted.
It's a trap.
Because we were so in love.
Every man's nightmare.
It's terrible.
I don't know what you're thinking.
And he would be such a sweet husband. And he would come to me and be like, hey, my friends, like we all wanted to get together and watch the game. Just wanted to check in with you and see, like they were thinking Thursday. Do we have anything Thursday? I just want to make sure that's okay with you. And I would literally look at him and say, like with this weird look and say, well, do what you want to do.
How obvious does a trap have to be before you start getting suspicious?
And then he would do what he wanted to do.
So I took it as an invitation. I didn't know it was like a weird test.
And
you got suckered into that one.
I know. I set him up to fail. He'd come home and I'd be so mad. And so, this was many years ago. I had to stop doing that. I needed to actually say.
Right. Just say what was on my mind and heart. I was hoping we could do this on Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's little by little, and give each other a ton of grace along the way. And I would say, and also mark your calendar for Mother's Day weekend.
That's
and
right.
Come to Crossroads Christian Church, or we're going to talk more about these things, or really just go every Sunday to Crossroads Christian Church, because you're going to hear some amazing teaching week after week. Mm-hmm. But we're excited to be coming. And Rusty, thank you I can't wait for having us not only on the podcast but at your church. We love your church.
Yeah, it's we're really excited about it. And if you're listening to this after Mother's Day 2025, go back and listen to Dave and Ashley's talk, or watch it on YouTube or on our website. But it's going to be a great weekend. I can't think of a better way for us to do Mother's Day than have you guys out. So tell everybody where they can find you and get some of your resources and connect with you guys. What's your best connection point?
Absolutely. Well, we're on social media, on Instagram at Dave and Ashley Willis. You can follow our marriage page on Facebook. That's at Stronger Marriages. But really, to get just all the information, you can go to daveandashley.com. We even have a free ebook right now. So go ahead and go.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, you guys are such a blessing to me and to our congregation, and to obviously many, many people across the nation. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for staying the course. Thank you for being a great model of both your successes and failures, and for encouraging us along the way, and really appreciate you being with us today.
It's been an honor. Thanks, Rusty.
It has. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you to Dave and Ashley. Thank you so much to our sponsor for making this show possible. I want to make sure you catch up on all the episodes in this series. There's 6 of them, and how to have a better marriage. Many incredible guests and incredible content for you. So check us out, and not only wherever you get your podcasts, but also on YouTube. Click subscribe so you always get our fresh content. And please, as always, share it with a friend. As we like to say around here, keep it simple.